All right. Well, I gave it a shot. Apparently, I can't do two versions of OBS and still have my microphone work on one of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record this and throw it up on my YouTube channel later. Like I usually do, I'll investigate that, see if there's a way around that. Anyway, sorry about that, everybody, and sorry everybody else on the restream chat. I will, I will try and figure that out. Okay, so, all right, yeah. So just toss out your questions. If I miss them, I apologize. We should be back up and running. So. Let's see. So we were kind of stopped here, and we had a big fat owl going, and we had some nice chubby cheeks going in here. And what I'm going to do just really quickly is we can kind of get a little bit of detail in here. I'm not going to spend, I don't think, too much more time on this guy. I think he's ready to be wrapped up, but got everything blocked out. One thing I'm looking at now is we did do last time like an upper and lower eyelid, which is fine. You can animate those separately. If this isn't your thing, what I can do is I can hold down Shift, shoot that one to the top, Alt Tap, shoot this one to the top with a bent arrow. I'm going to merge these down into one, and then I'm going to, if I want to keep them around, I can. I'm going to duplicate them off. So what I can do is I can go ahead and see if I can't weld these together. Now I am actually pretty close. You can see what I can also do is I can say, okay, I can apply these dynamic subdivisions. I can go through here, I can crank up my Dynamesh, and then I can merge these together, and then I can polish these off, and then I can make it all one seamless mesh. But since my meshes are actually pretty close, I'm going to hit Shift D to turn off, oops, not Shift D, let's go ahead and undo back to where we hit apply. And then we'll do Shift D. So what I can also do is I can take this top one here and this bottom one by holding down Control Shift. We'll go ahead and delete hidden. And then I'm going to go down and hit double, which is under your display properties here. And let's turn on double. There we go. And I'm going to hover over one corner here, and we're going to go to, let's go to stitch 2 points here and here, here and here, and here and here. And if you wanted to try like cranking up your weld distance, you might be able to do this, but I have a feeling those are a little bit too far apart for that to work nicely. But it's easy enough just to go through here and we can stitch these. This will save me a little bit of time. Alternatively, you can also create this like we did last time, which is to just go through and you mask this area of the eyeball and you remesh it and stuff like that. But here we can hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. We can go ahead and uncrease everything. It's under your geometry crease menu. And there we go. So now we have all one piece of geometry here. And we don't have to worry about Dynamesh. It'll be nice. It's an easy envelope to kind of mess around with. If we want to give it thickness again, since we did get rid of that interior space, we can go Q Mesh Polygroup All, and then just push this inwards. Now when I push that inwards, it looks right, but if I go over here and turn off double, you're going to see it's flipped. So just go ahead and hit that flip geo there. Let's go ahead and do a crease tolerance here. We'll hit Dynamic. And if you want to go ahead and crease the corner of these eyeballs here, you can go ahead and crease edge here, and crease edge wherever that corner of that eyeball is. I guess it was somewhere down here maybe. It's kind of a weird place to put it. Although, if I don't put it there, I guess it is. I guess he's just got big, sleepy, kind of sad eyes. I don't know if that's the best choice, but it's the choice we've made. Or I've made. You've just watched me make it. I won't involve you in that. So there we go. One contiguous ring around here. Now if you wanted to go ahead and say, you know what, I want these eyelids built into the head, which might be easier to kind of control. If you wanted to keep this like a separate material or a separate color, this would be a good choice. But if you did want to, you know, go ahead and merge those into the head, which wouldn't be a terrible choice, we can go ahead and do that. One thing I might consider though is possibly something like this. So this is what I might do. Instead of having it like a thin piece of geo, because what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to, I don't have to do this. Now I can retopologize these as separate objects, but if you wanted to start sculpting or kind of refining these transitions here, you'd want to Dynamesh this, and in that case you would have, let me go ahead and turn off these eyeballs here. You would have just kind of this thin mesh just kind of sitting here, which I don't know, I mean, I guess that could work. But if you wanted to, you can go ahead and tap this one here. Let's do Shift D. And let's see if we can't do something like, if you isolate this one here, invert it, go ahead and delete hidden, and then we can just do a close. Let's try to close a convex hole here. And I'm just going to have it so it has 1 point here. And then I can go through here, I can mask this point and then invert my mask, and then we can just push this back here. And then on the back, this I don't care about so much. We can just go ahead and close convex hull. That's fine. And then that way, when you Dynamesh this, and we go ahead and bring back our eyeballs here, then we hit D. Doesn't look any different, but it might be a little bit easier to like ZRemesh and that kind of stuff. Oh, good. Hopefully those ZBrush for ideation videos work out for you. They should be updated to 2019, unless no, I think I remember doing that. Sorry about that. Yeah. And let me make sure, hold on, let me check out yep, audio seems to be working fine. So, all right. I also think while I was doing some hardware troubleshooting, I put some eyebrows on this guy. Essentially all that was if we turn this off here, let's go ahead and turn these off here. That was simply just going in here to BTO, topology brush, and going through here and just drawing on a little pair of eyebrows, and then doom, doom, just kind of dragging across. If it ever skips, just kind of go a little bit slower, like so, and then tap off, and then go ahead and split mask points, and then now you've got a little pair of eyebrows you can go through here. And split mask points is underneath the split menu. Under here. Subtool, split. So now this is a little bit thick, so what you can do is you can go through here, hold down shift when you Q-mesh those faces. And then these here, you can move them in manually if you go through here and you kind of use the move brush. What I'll do is I'll just go in here with the pinch brush, just kind of pinch those things together, kind of thin it out. And if we want to inflate this side, make them a little thicker, you can go through and inflate. This gives it a little bit more of a uniform thickness as opposed to me going in there with my move brush. And then we can go through here and kind of rotate these eyebrows however we want. And then you can always hit D for dynamic. Let's go ahead and we can do a crease level of like 1, and that'll kind of maintain those corners a little bit. These actually kind of like those eyebrows a little bit better. You know what, let's keep them. These old ones, you're deleted. All right, these eyebrows will work fine. So, you know, you can animate these independently. These ones you wouldn't want to build in. You can just have these separate, and you can give it a little different material. Again, this is what we're kind of using right here. This little Disney, I want to say Sword in the Stone, maybe. And then we can kind of give it a default here. Let's go ahead and rotate these back just a little bit. And then I can have this brow ridge kind of meet our default here, and we'll see how that looks. That'll work. And if we ever wanted to go through and check our proportions or anything like that, we could load that up again. Let's see if I can find it. It's been a while since we've done this. Hey, there it is. Streaming, Al. Let's go to View Extra Large, and we'll go ahead and drag this one in. Texture, select it, add it to my spotlight. We'll go ahead and drop this size down and this opacity down. Hit Z. And then we can go through here, we can turn on perspective, and then we kind of line up our object and make sure. Looks like my beak's a little weak. Body's a little bit long, but we did end up stretching him out so that we could, if we retopologized him, we'd have a little neck and a little body underneath here. And like I said, his beak's a little bit weak. Now this is subdivided geometry, so we can do Shift D to turn off our dynamic. It's a little bit heavy. Well, maybe not. Depending on what you want to do with this beak later, it might be beneficial to have quite a bit more geometry to kind of play with here. And we'll go ahead and pull this down, give him a little bit more character. I'm going to go ahead and use Move Accu. That's your move brush with Accu curve turned on, so I can kind of pull down to a point a little bit easier. And if I want to put a crease in there, I can as well. And we'll go ahead and just make that. And I am just using one kind of reference picture of this owl, so if they have any built-in emotions or his mouth is doing anything funny with this pose, I'm kind of not doing myself any favors by building that in, but I think that's kind of the beak look that they had. So we'll go ahead and round this out here. Now again, like I said, if we hit D, there's our dynamic. If we do want to go through here and we want to add a crease to this edge, we can, like so. And then the other question would be, for like a 3D object or a character, would I want to have this as a separate object here? Let's go ahead and maybe crease this too. Maybe crease this too. And now if this one we do a crease level 2 smooth does a subdiv of 3, you can see those creases have a little bit more of effect. That might be a bit much. I don't know. Let's do crease level 1 again. A little bit softer. And we'll go down here. Pull those out. Cool. How's your week going? My week's going okay. That's good to have my computer back and working how I would expect. It was a little bit scary having it kind of crap out when you open up something and you expect it to, you know, work as intended. And then I started thinking about my CGMA class. If this stuff isn't working, I'm gonna start freaking out because then I'd have to use like my laptop or something. But it ended up just being a little bit of a Windows update, so that worked out. And other than that, boring week. I've got to take my wife's car in to get it registered, I think, today. And then I am going to take a little bit of time soon. I'm ramping up on Blender, kind of doing some zany stuff with that. That should be kind of fun. I'm going to go ahead and pull this bridge down a little bit here. So this is kind of like mimicking, not that an owl would have this, but that eye socket that you have that kind of overlaps a little bit. We can kind of maybe put a little bit of that in. So I think we've got the overall face here. If you want to start putting in a few of these little details here, we can. I'm going to use Damien Standard for now. And then at this point, you could just decide, you know, you can go ahead and merge all these things together and then ZRemesh it. We could also use maybe a BS snake hook H. And also remember, we have available to you your Sculptors Pro mode, so you can turn that on, and then with your snake hook, as you're pulling out, it'll just go ahead and keep updating, give you a little bit more leeway. It'll automatically tessellate your object there. So that might be a little bit nicer. And you can use both if you wanted, like, not have to worry too much about Dynamesh at first. You can go ahead and just have Sculptors Pro mode turned on, and then you can go ahead and turn it back off and then re-Dynamesh your object. Of course, if you're going to do that, use Sculptors Pro mode. One of the things you can do is you can go ahead and overlap objects like so, and then when you go down, hold down Shift, it'll keep them separate, and you can also, you know, go through an object like that. However, if you do turn off Sculptors Pro mode and then you re-Dynamesh, it's going to stick those two together. So just, and also Dynamesh, without Sculptors Pro mode, these brushes don't really get rid of those little bridges. Eventually you can, kind of. It's just a lot easier with Sculptors Pro mode to go through here and just kind of, hey, get rid of all that stuff. So I'll leave that up to you. Hey, thanks for showing up, Narek. I'm hoping to be able to stream a little bit more. Just like Bertram says, the department, I think I'm trying to get it to where I can peel back just a little bit. And let's go ahead and turn that Sculptors Pro off. I can peel back just a little bit and get into, because I haven't done any training. I used to be good at training, I think. So if I could maybe get back into that a little bit, I could be a little bit more useful, and then also get back into any sort of streaming and stuff. I haven't actually like made anything in ZBrush since my last stream, and then before that, probably the previous stream. So I don't really do much anymore, which is silly. I should still be doing more stuff. So I'm hoping I can kind of make that happen. So over here, I'm going to make a little bit of a sharper transition. I was holding down Alt with the Damien Standard brush, so we can kind of maybe transition from the front to the side of his face, and then with Damien Standard again, just go through here, and we can kind of just start giving some direction to where I want to place these feathers eventually. And the feather placement, that can be any number of things. What I'm thinking I'm going to end up doing, because he's going to be cartoony, is I can do it. It's going to either be a simple insert mesh brush, or it's going to be a vector displacement mesh. I don't think I'm going to get any fancier than that. I don't believe. I could be wrong. Let's see here, and then we'll just place some feathers here. I think this neck will just transition here. So let's go ahead and start making some decisions on how we want this thing to start resolving into the final mesh here. I think that'll work. This will work here. And then this, this one he has the eyebrows kind of meeting in the middle. Let's go ahead and crank our sort of smooth subdivs up to 3. And you know what else I might do? Let's go ahead and hit a crease for that crease tolerance, get a little bit of an angle in here. And I'll use the move brush to kind of just set these a little closer together. All right. If you wanted to get, like say you have a character and you wanted to get a little bit more designy or make it a little bit more of a graphic read, it's usually pretty easy if we go through and we can do something like this. Actually, what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and say copy. Where is that at? Copy tool. I'm going to go over here to Simple Brush, and we'll hit Switch. We'll hit Control-N to clear my canvas, and then we'll Paste tool. So I have 2 duplicate areas here. And then through each of these, I'm going to go through with my Z plugin, ZRepeat it. Do I really not have ZRepeat it loaded for 2019? See, the things I forget. Let me make a note of that. Load plugins. Actually, you know what we can do? Let's do this. We'll call it learning experience. We'll go. I'm going to go to the Pixelogic Download Center. We're going to go to ZBrush plugins. I'm going to go all the way down here to the bottom parts here, and we'll go ahead and grab ZRepeat it. I'm going to download it. I'm going to show it in that folder there. And then here, let's go to ZBrush 2019. I guess 0.1 is the latest. Program files, Pixelogic ZBrush 2019, Z Startup, Z Plug 64. No ZRepeat it in there just yet, so I'm going to take ZRepeat it. I'm going to say 7-zip, extract here. And that just threw it on my desktop over in the corner where you can't see it. Let me grab it. So that'll give you a little ZRepeated install folder. So now I'm just going to take this folder and the Z script, and we're going to copy it. We can just move it right into our Z Plug 64. And then I'm trying to remember, there's probably not a way to reload this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the top and hit Quick Save, or you can hit the 9 key since you might not be able to see that recording. And then we'll go ahead and shut down ZBrush, and then we'll restart ZBrush. Let me get caught up here. When you use Spotlight for Ref, do you keep perspective on? So if I'm matching something that the reference is in 3D and has perspective turned on, I'll turn perspective on, but as soon as I'm out of that mode, I'll just turn it off while I'm sculpting and modeling. I don't usually sculpt or model with perspective on. Bertram says no ZBrush, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm hoping to get back in, and there's so much cool stuff out there I want to do, and I can't, but I'm getting there. I can, oh wait, yeah, we didn't save that. We went into our quick saves here. So I'm going to go into quick save, and 389, hopefully, okay, that looked a little bit weird, but I think we did okay. There we go. So we're back where we started, and bonus, Z plugin, ZRepeat it is over here. So basically, essentially what I want to do is I want to go through here under Geometry Dynamic Subdiv, and I want to go ahead and apply my dynamic subdivisions on one of my copied tools here. So we can see we have dynamic turned on, but apply isn't applied, because if I go through and I say merge, it's going to merge this version. So I'm going to say under ZRepeat it, let me make sure I don't have that. Yeah, okay. So we're going to say have this dynamic is turned on, but apply isn't selected yet. So we're going to say record new, and we're going to say apply dynamic, and then we're going to end record, and we're going to say apply dynamic. So now we have apply dynamic over here, and I'm going to say go ahead and do that for all of my subtools. It'll go through and apply dynamic for all my subtools. So now when I go through here and I say merge visible, and these ones I don't even need anymore. Let's go ahead and delete all of them so I don't get confused. And then here's my merged object right here. So we were talking about making a maybe a little bit more of a graphic style version of this guy for maybe a statue or something like that. So at that point, you could go ahead and Dynamesh all this stuff together. Let's go ahead and move our resolution up just a little bit here. Let's do a little bit higher than that. And we'll turn blur off. So now we have a version of all of this all plugged in together. And if we want to, we can also go through here with maybe trim curve. We can maybe do like a bust here. Go ahead and Dynamesh this, and we'll go in here and we'll do a mirror and weld because trim doesn't go, isn't a mirrorable operation. I'm going to hold down Shift. We're going to go into Smooth Stronger. We're going to turn on Sculptors Pro so we can kind of alleviate some of that. We'll go ahead and re-Dynamesh this so it'll close the holes here. Oh boy, Sculptors Pro is just killing it. Okay, so we're going to go to Mirror, Mirror and Weld, hit X to go across X Symmetry, turn Sculptors Pro mode off, and then we can hold down Shift and just start smoothing this stuff together now. And now we can go in here with our trim brush, and we can kind of make like a little bust statue here. And now that he's Dynamesh, we can change this to whatever we want. If you want to put a little pedestal in here, let's go ahead and grab a cylinder. Let's pop that in the back there. I'm trying to think of what even a statue pedestal even looks like. I want to say, you know what, it might just, this is going to sound dumb, but it might just be an actual straight up and down pedestal. Pedestal? Pedestal. So we'll go through here, and this time what I'm going to do, let's do this. Let's do cylinder of 16. And now when I drag this out, I don't want it to follow my surface normal, so I'm going to go up here to Picker, Orientation, and I'm just going to turn that, just tap that on so it goes straight out. And then we can go ahead to continuous orientation, and then I can hold down Shift, and then we can just hold down. Let's hold that down. Actually, let's scale this down, and then we'll scale it non-uniformly there with our gizmo. Something like this. Now, if we want to add a little bit more detail, let's go ahead and split mask points here, and let's go ahead and go in here. We'll say Insert, Multiple Edge Loops, and then actually let's have a little bit more control. Let's go Insert Single Edge Loop. Can we do a mirror and weld? Yeah, right down the middle. Nice. Okay, so we can go ahead and say, okay, I want this, and then this, and then this, and then that one, flat one's fine. So I'm going to hold down Polygroup, let's hover over an edge. We'll do Polygroup, Polyloop here. Go ahead and change that. And so now if we do a QMesh Polygroup All, I can QMesh this out, of course. I can also just hold down Shift, and that'll give me, from that edge loop I put in, it'll kind of give me a little bit more of a taper in through here. And then for this middle one here, what I can also do is I can go to Insert, Multiple Edge Loops, Interactive Elevation, and then we can add a little detail like this maybe. And that'll be our column. I don't know, let's go ahead and say, you know what, let's divide this up into its respective polygroups here. Let's take this one, we're going to go into Polygroups Auto Groups, and now we can do a crease polygroup, and we'll throw in a crease tolerance as well. Dynamic, crease level of 1, smooth subdiv, oops, let's do crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3. There we go. Now, here, that's okay, but this bottom one is a little bit too soft here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here, we'll insert a single edge loop, and we'll just kind of tighten those up just a little bit here. Crease level of 2. There we go. So now you got a little column. Of course, at the top here, we probably need to add in a little edge loop to keep that contained. Why does it keep switching back? Stop. There we go. Now, if you want these to be together, you can. You can just you can apply these and then Dynamesh them together. If this is a little bit too squirrely for your tastes, you can go ahead and go through here. You can mask this, and then you can just kind of spread that out a little bit more. You can also go to Unmesh Mesh Center, and I think if you hold down Control, no, Alt, no, Alt Shift. Let me see. Control Shift. Oh, is it Z? Did something. Okay, Control Alt with Y. It'll scale it out, but it looks like I didn't grab that mask well enough. So we'll go ahead and mask this, invert that, unmesh mesh center. Oh, turn off X symmetry. Duh. Okay, and then Control Alt along the Y. And let's go ahead and add in an edge loop so we can. Oops, you don't want to Dynamesh this. I will make this work. Insert single edge loop. We want to hold that, and we want to hold. Actually, you know what we can do? Let's do this. Hold down Control Shift, do Control Shift S to shrink, mask these ones, and then you can go through here and then it's Control Alt. There we go. Control Alt, and then Y. I think will pull uniformly along the X, Y, or no, the X Z, or the Z. I don't know. Whatever axis this one isn't. That'll go ahead and pull those out for you. Or you can in a pinch, you can be like, hey, you know what? I want a little bit more oomph to that curve. You can't just go through here and redraw it. So insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation. Sorry about that. There we go. And then again, we'll isolate this one, hit Control W, and then we'll go through here. You can do an uncrease all, but really I just need to go through here. Let's isolate this one, and then we'll do uncrease all here, and then we'll isolate this one, and then you can just do a crease, and that'll crease your open borders, and then you're back where you started. Okay, I got a question. David says, can I ask you something? Is there a way to make leaves or feathers in fiber mesh actually printable in a 3D printer? Yeah, you can. You're just going to have to make them real thick, and you may even want to like Dynamesh it just to give you even more control. I actually did that. Do I have a picture of this? Where's my cowboy? So I did a cowboy areas. So on this guy here, so this guy was 3D printed. This was for an older Eat 3D type thing here. If I go full screen, okay, I guess that's not too bad. So here's a little cowboy I made a long time ago for Eat 3D. And you can see he's got fiber mesh and stuff on his beard and like little stubble and things, but we did have to 3D print it. So on this one here, let's go to a bigger one here. You can see I had to kind of over crank that fiber because eventually you are going to just essentially turn it into geometry. And, you know, if it's too thin, then it's not going to be very 3D printable. So fatten up those fibers. At the end of the day, if you're doing something like a feather, it may be better to give, I mean, you can do a feather, and you can, so for example, on Pablo Munoz Gomez's website, ZBrush Guides, he's got a really good intro or a guide to, you know, creating feathers in ZBrush using a bunch of different techniques, fiber mesh, and then more fiber mesh, and then just sculpting out and stuff like that. And like different types of feathers you can do. But I don't think we'll need any of that for this cartoony guy. But essentially what you'll do is you can create those fiber mesh feathers. But at the end of the day, it might be better just to go through and give yourself a feather shape. And then, actually, you know what? We'll do that today. While we're talking about it, we might as well just show it, right? So, for example, we've got this kind of bust thing we've got going here. So let's say we want to put some feathers on this guy. A couple different ways to do that. I'm going to smooth these transitions out here. Now, another thing too is I put the neck further out just to make it so when I went through and remesh this guy, I would have, and also now his mouth is sewn in there. So if I wanted to make this animatable, because I was doing a statue, so stay on track, Mike. So we're going to go through here, and we'll make like a little bit more of a statuesque version of this guy. So what I'm going to do is I can go through with my H polish, and we can just kind of pull up our forms here. So we can kind of go through, and we can just kind of hold down Alt and kind of H polish like so. And you can just start picking like different planes you want. If you really want to over crank these planes, what you can do is go with your Damien standard. You can hold down Alt, and I'm going to go through here. We'll turn up our lazy radius, which is under your stroke menu here. Turn on your lazy mouse and up your lazy radius, and then you can hold down Alt and just kind of start dialing in some very, very sharp transitions, and then you can fill in those transitions a little bit with your clay brush, like so. And then you can go and clean these up with your H polish brush. You can just polish it down. You can see my brush is a little bit bigger than it needs to be. It just gives me a little bit of a nicer result. Then you can hold down Alt in those tight areas and hold down Shift to smooth. If it's smoothing too strong, because I have Smooth Stronger turned on, you can fix that just by holding down Shift and turning down that Z intensity. So now we're going through here, and we can kind of go through. Now, if I was doing this for real, I would have all of these pieces still separate, and I would just work on, for example, this piece right here, I would work on it separately, because it'd just be a little bit easier to go through here and, like, say, H-polish these things separately into a nice hard surface result, give it more of a chiseled look, and then Dynamesh it down. But since we didn't, that's where we are. But anyway, just an easy way to kind of go through, and again, give it that, what's that Oscar statue type look if that's what you needed to do, like for like I was saying, doing like a statue or something like that. Or if you wanted to do just a very stylized like jewelry print, you can start with this kind of owl shape, and then you can go through and just kind of harden it up a bit, like so. And at this point, you could retopologize it. You can ZRemesh it. You can get some very nice creased edges along here and make it very nice sub-D hard surface. But I'll leave that up to you. So we'll leave that guy alone for now. And we're going to talk about feathers. So let's see if I can do any other quick questions here. Hey, Michael, how long have you been in ZBrush? Ooh, ZBrush 2.5. When did that come out? I was a late adopter to 2.5, so it was just as ZBrush was transitioning. If I remember correctly, there was a video I watched where they were doing like, it was like this. I'll recreate the video I saw when I was in college. So it was like a sphere, edit, make polymesh 30, and it actually didn't look like this. It probably looked more like this basic material, and honestly, it probably didn't even have shadows. So it looked more like this, and it was before anything. So it was basically like you use the geometry and you would go through here and it's like, okay, I want to do a deep sea fish. You would go in here with your move brush, and then you would put in a little tail like so, and then and it also didn't have a gizmo, so I can turn that off. So it was more like this. Oh, do I remember how to use the gizmo? I guess we'll find out. Yes. Okay. So then going in here with your move brush here and just kind of sculpting out a fish, and just going in here with your clay brush and just kind of going through here and like this. And so I was watching like, it was like an animated GIF, or maybe was it? No, it wasn't before YouTube, but it was a long time ago. Let's say 2000 and, well, maybe it was before YouTube, because I graduated Ringling 05, and so yeah. Oh yeah, and so another thing they did was they would mask and then invert that mask, and then they would tap here, and then they would use the move brush, and then they would go through and just kind of go through and like smooth it out, and then like this, and then they would go through and do all this kind of stuff. And it was a much cooler fish than this. But one thing they did do was, again, they would like go through, or it would be like, okay, subdivide this result, and then they would go through and invert that, and then they would use this to kind of go through and like pull up this, or maybe it was, maybe it was just one, or you know what, it was probably, now that I remember it, it was probably like spines. So it was probably like here, 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 and then they would like pull out spines like so, but it was probably a little bit fancier than that. So I'm doing a terrible representation of the amazing video that I saw 15 years ago about ZBrush. Go through here and make these spines, and then also, being able to kind of put in that one long little deep sea area right here. Now again, this was before like Dynamesh or anything like that, so you had to go through and rework your geometry after you make any major changes. But just watching somebody do this back when I was learning how to just polymodel things was like, what? You can just make stuff in ZBrush? How is that even possible? Game changer. So they did a much cooler version of this fish. That's what I remember. And that was, let's say, 2003. Okay, so one of the Discord guys had a question. Do I need a full body character, or are quality busts enough when applying for a job as a character artist? And what should I focus on for most entry-level character art? I would say for a character artist, you can do a bust like I did, just to kind of simplify what you're trying to get across. But the only time I do a bust is when I'm doing like a live stream and I'm like, you know what, forget all this other stuff. I got too much stuff to do and I have too little time. But if you want to be in a character art, do a full body character, and really that's fun. That's way funner than just kind of doing just a bust. I mean, a bust is fine if you want to focus in on like skin and hair and that kind of thing, and you don't want to do a full body clothing thing, but you want to make sure you're well rounded. If all you have is busts in your portfolio, and I might not be the best person to ask about that, because what I do is I hire for sandbox art, at Certain Affinity, our sandbox artist, they are technically character art. Basically, anything that's rigged or animated in game is what we do art for. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your skill set, that includes weapons, vehicles, creatures, characters. Again, anything that gets animated in game goes through our pipeline and we do the art for. So it can kind of be a little bit difficult to hire for that because, you know, if you're great at skin and hair and cloth and stuff, that's excellent. We do definitely need that. But also you need to be able to do a little bit of prop modeling or, you know, like usables. And you don't have to be the world's best weapon modeler. We have amazing weapon modelers for that. But you do need to be able to throw in or throw down a bit as needed. And it also makes yourself a little bit more marketable. But just for like general character artist stuff, actually, I might have something for you. I don't know if I really explain it that well. If I go to manage my blog, to college degree, motivation 2D, break into the games industry. This one probably is the best. Let me copy that link address. This one might have a little bit more information for you. I've had a bunch of ZSphere separate subtools, and I had to convert them all with Polymesh 3D. Is it possible to Z-repeat? ZSphere subtools. Let's try it. So let's go ahead and switch. Actually, we don't have to switch. Let's try this. Another thing we can try it and do, well, if you hit clone, it's just going to clone out a single piece. So whatever you have selected in here, it'll go ahead and clone that to an open subtool slot here like this. Ooh, boy, that's creepy looking. But let's go ahead and do a subtool, append ZSphere. And if we go through here, let's turn my gizmo back on since it's been way too long since I've used my... and also let's turn on X symmetry for this. So if we have this and we have... let's go ahead and drop some ZSpheres in here. And for the uninitiated, you guys know what ZSpheres are. So you can just go through here and you can drop in ZSpheres and you can go and make like a little body shape or any number of things. And we can go ahead and say, let's go ahead and append a new ZSphere. Let's turn on X symmetry and hit W to move. Oops. X symmetry, W to move. And we'll have a couple of ZSpheres, which was what the question was here. Let's go through here and we'll hit Q to draw and then E and R to scale and rotate and all that good stuff. So we have a couple of ZSpheres here. Now if I hit A, that gives me an adaptive skin, of course, by default. These adaptive skins are set to Dynamesh mode. You can just turn that down to 0, density of 1, and that'll get you back down to my preferred method here. So we have preview, but then we want to do a make adaptive skin. So what you could do is you could say Z-repeat it, make adaptive skin for all, or for all visible if you wanted to play it safe and be like, hey, you know what, just these are my visible guys. So now the problem might be if you have preview off, it'll still go through and make adaptive. Now, here's the other caveat is when you hit make adaptive skin, it's going to shoot it out here as a separate subtool. So you'd still have to, you can go through and make adaptive skin on multiple by using Z-repeat it, but you're going to have to go through and append them all back. There might be a fancier way around that. I'm not super versed in like ZSphere little weird things you can sometimes do. Sometimes ZBrush will allow you to do some pretty cool things. Can I tap this? No. It'll allow you to do some pretty weird things with like ZSpheres. So there might be a way where you can be like, you can skip the whole adaptive skin part and you can do something like, I don't know, BPR render. No, I guess you can't render BPR if we hit A. No, that's not an option. I'm trying to think of a way around you having to hit make adaptive skin and just converting this to geo on the fly in the same subtool. That I don't know. But you should be able to make adaptive. Well, let's try it. So make sure I'm not lying to you. We'll turn the preview off. Let's say we don't have that on. So we're going to say Z-repeat it. Oops, that's just instructions. Record new. And we're going to say make adaptive skin. And record. We're going to say okay, so now we have a button for that, and now we can do, you know what, for this one, I'm going to hit Control, oh wait, we don't have to hit Control Z, because again, all it does is throw out a skin Z sphere, so we can go ahead and delete that. So we have this here, and let's turn on this one. Let's just see to make sure it doesn't error out. So we have everything visible. This doesn't have any adaptive skin because it's just geometry, but these two do have adaptive skins, and it's not previewing. But if you wanted to, I don't think it would make any difference because that button stays active. So preview or not, you can go through here. You can say make adaptive skin for everything or visible. Let's say all. Okay, yeah, so it will error out if you do have an object here that's visible. So you want to make sure that just your ZSphere objects are showing. So it would be those two, and then make adaptive skin for all visible. And then we got this one, and then we got this one, and then of course you would have to go through here and you can say append this one, append this one, and then you can go ahead and delete your ZSpheres if you don't need them anymore. And then there you go. So kind of. Cool. Okay, so let me get back on track a little bit here. So what we were talking about was maybe doing some feathers, and we're doing lo-fi cartoony feathers for this one. So it should be pretty easy. Let me get this plane 3D here. We're going to make Polymesh 3D here. So just a feather shape. We can go ahead and hit, hold down Control. Actually, let's get a little bit more resolution than that. We'll hit Control D to subdivide this up. So now we can go through here, and we can just make... you know what? This is just such a simple feather shape. So you could, this is going to be silly, but you could do this. This is one of the techniques you can use. Let's go ahead and delete lower, and then underneath geometry here, you can say edge loop, mask border, and then isolate this one, delete hidden. And I like to do just a quick ZRemesher half adaptive size down to 0, just to get these to its bare base components. And you could just use BTO to draw the stuff off, kind of like we did when we first started. This will be your overall just basic feather shape, and then you can say QMesh polygroup all. And then even through here, you can hit, let's go to unmesh, mesh center, and let's do a bend arc. I'll go ahead and bend this feather. Work with me. There we go. Nope. This one. Kind of bend the feather this way a little bit. And while we're thinking about it, let's go ahead and say QMesh a single poly here with ZModeler. That's ZModeler brush, BZM. And then now you have a little feather shape. And if you are just going to have this thing stuck into the body, you don't need this. Just QMesh a poly, get rid of that. So we can do a crease polygroup, crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2. And now we've got a little feather shape here that we can go through, and we can say brush, create insert mesh. We'll make a new brush for this. Now, instead of doing all that, you can just start out with, say, a Polymesh 3D. Since it's so simple, it's not a real complex shape here. We'll go to initialize, hit Q cube, and we'll go ahead and scale this down in this direction. And let's go ahead and go insert single edge loop, hover over an edge, hold down Alt, and then now you can just kind of fashion this into just a U shape like this. And now if we go dynamic, crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 3, and you know what, let's crease polygroup. There we go. This will be kind of that feather shape we were looking for. Simple enough, right? And let's hit X symmetry so we can kind of go through here and we can kind of get the overall shape we're looking for. So now with this one, we do have that feather brush we made. So we'll go ahead and select it. We'll hit B, create insert mesh, append. So now we've got 2 different types of feathers we can use. So now if we go back here to our guy, we can go through his, say his chest here. And then we can use any one of these. We can go through and we can start dragging these things on. So we can say here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. I'm going to isolate this body here, and we'll go ahead and split hidden. And then with these feathers here, we can hit D, and we'll say crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2. And then we've got these little feathers kind of hanging out. Now, these are, when I drag them all on, they got different polygroups, which we can use to our advantage. We can go in here to our move brush settings. Let's see, auto masking. There is, if you go BM, there is move topological somewhere in there, but I don't use that. I use, just turn topological on over here. We'll change that range down to 1.5. And then I can just go through here and you can kind of move these things around. You can also do Shift D if you just want to see the exact geometry you're messing around with. Another thing you can do is you can use that in conjunction with, or use mask by polygroups to kind of go through here. You can hit W and Control Tap, and then you can go through here manually. Now, what might have been smarter is for me to capture when I, oh yeah, let's show you that. Let's go ahead and always switch. We go back here and let's say we have this one again. And we want to go ahead and capture this one. But I am going to rotate this so it kind of has like a scaled effect. And you know what, let's go ahead and thicken that up a little bit. So now, when I draw that out, it's going to be a little bit tilted. So I'm going to hit Brush, Create Insert Mesh. Nope, I don't want to do that. Go back to your original brush here, Brush, Create Insert Mesh, Append. Let's keep it tidy. And then we'll go back here to our guy. And then now we can do, if we go back to the body here, when we drag these ones on, you're going to see, oops, let's make sure we have the right one selected. Third one. They should be kind of tilted out. Maybe not. Let's do this. Now this is another thing that was introduced 2018, I believe. Underneath Create here, you can say Delete Mesh, get rid of that one. Let's go back to our object here I snapped. That should be right. Brush. Create Insert Mesh, Append. Let's go back. This one. And the best way to test probably is going here with a plane. Make Polymesh 3D. So now if I drag these ones out, they're going to be kind of sticking out a little bit. And then if I drag these ones out, they're going to be flat. So flat, sticky out. And then that way I can kind of layer them a little bit better. So when you're layering them, you probably want to start, you know, lower and then go higher. And you want to make sure you're grabbing the surface normal like so. So now when you layer these things on, again, we can isolate that, we can split hidden. And then now you have these guys available to you and they'll already be pre-layered. And if you want them, as you're dragging them out, obviously, you can go in here to depth and it's at 48 right now. So let's set that to 0. Now this is not brush dependent. That's, oh, maybe it is. So that is brush dependent. So go through here and now when I drag those on, it should be kind of perfectly buried onto the surface there. So feathers, A. And on this one, let's go ahead and say crease level of 1, smooth subdivision of 2. Now, here's the question. Do you want to keep these things separate or do you want them to be mixed in with the body? If you want to be added to the body, I would say go ahead and detail the body out and then go ahead and Dynamesh this. This one you would go ahead and apply those dynamic subdivisions here. So if we go in here and we say shoot this one to the top. Oh, I forgot I had glasses on for this guy. A little pair of old man glasses. Let me take these feathers, hold down shift, shoot those to the top. So now this one has, the body has Dynamesh built in. So if I go through here, you can see the resolution set to 128. So if I do, now this is very low resolution, so I probably want to bump that up a bit. There we go. So if I want to merge these down, I can go ahead and merge them down, and it'll inherit my Dynamesh properties. So now when I Dynamesh this, they'll all be stuck together. And now I have like, let's go ahead and turn off under our auto masking here. Mask by polygroups down to 0. So you can go through and just kind of smooth these things together. That gives you the most control. The other alternative to that would be if you wanted to, oh, is that a, you know, I think we can just use a plane for this. Let's try this. Geometry. So there is a template you can use, but I think it's a Z project. Under miscellaneous, there is a brush template. I don't want to lose all this stuff. So let's try this. Let's see if I remember how to do this. I don't do this very often. So plane 3D, make Polymesh 3D here. And we can make a vector displacement map. For the uninitiated, vector displacement is simply, we have an object here, and if we go into brush, let's say chisel creature here, we can go through here and we can have maybe scales, and we can just drag these on, and you're going to see these are kind of like feathers too. So essentially, and you can see it actually has overlap as opposed to an alpha, which would just go straight back. So you can use this method to kind of go through and add feathers. A little bit fast, not quite as much control as this, but you know, enough. And then to make your own, I think, without having to go and resort to the template system, is again make Polymesh 3D plane here. And let's go to geometry. We'll reconstruct down to just a blank square here, and we're going to go ahead and turn off smooth modifier, and we'll go ahead and divide this up. And then we'll go ahead and say, let's turn on X symmetry here. We go ahead and mask out. We'll just do 1. Hit W, and we'll pull this out here, and we'll kind of tilt it. And then let's invert that mask, and then we'll unmask this top here. We'll invert that, and we'll hold down Control, and we'll kind of feather that mask out a little bit, and then I'm just going to use Scale. Let's kind of pull that geometry underneath here. So we have kind of an underhang here. And then here, we can just take this and... Now, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can go to my YouTube channel if you want to get heavier into that. You can also go down your subdivision levels. Whoa, that's a lot. Go down in your subdivision levels if you want to have a little bit easier time manipulating these things. But at the end of the day, you'll have something like this. And then I think if we go to, let's just add this to the chisel creature brush. We have this one here selected. Let's go in here to brush and create multi-alpha brush, insert mesh brush. Maybe it's under alpha. Create alpha from mesh. Okay, now this is just going to be an alpha. Yeah. Boy, I don't even remember how to do this. Create nanomesh brush. Let's try this. Brush, create. Let's create a multi-alpha brush out of this. There we go. So we created a multi-alpha brush. We have a 3D. That little 3D means it's vector displacement. So now if I use this one, you know what I think it was? I think if I went into chisel creature and then clone that off, and then you can go through here, and then now let's see if that actually worked. Sorry guys, it's been a long time since I've used vector displacement. There we go. So now we have our vector displacement alpha. Now with this one, of course, you don't have to do a drag rect. You can do a drag dot. Let's go ahead and turn off lazy mouse here. So you can go through here and just drag out like so. Or you can do like freehand stroke, lazy mouse. You can crank the lazy step up or down, and you can kind of start overlapping these things like so. So you can kind of get that kind of effect. Anyway, there's also the magnify somewhere in here. Maybe under alpha and texture. Yeah, high magnify. So you can do like 3. And then as you drag and use your brush strokes, let's also take that stroke lazy radius down a little bit. So you can start here, and then you can magnify, and then go back down to a stroke. Or if you don't like that, you can keep that at 1, and then you can go low, bigger, and then smaller. So it doesn't bloat when you press down, it just kind of gets bigger. Cool. Can you show how inner and outer work inside of ZModeler? Under what brush specifically? I'm not sure. Let me see if we have a cylinder here. Edit. Make polymesh 3D. QMesh, a single poly here. Here, and then here. Oh, for like maybe Polygroup, inner, outer. I vaguely remember. Oh, Polygroup inner. QMesh. Polygroup inner, and then honestly, I'm not. That's just all of them. I think if it's something like okay, so it's in your interior polygon. So if you do have, so we can, if you want to steal this polygroup, we can go ahead and make this bigger. So essentially, here's your polygroup border, and then if you do polygroup inner, it's going to take that polygroup border and then just do the interior of them. So And I don't see a polygroup outer. But yeah, it looks like that's what it's doing. So if we go through and mark these things, and then we make these both the same polygroup here, and then we do polygroup inner, yeah. So it's just taking a border and then polygrouping the interior of them. I would assume outer is similar. Yarv says it's in ZScripts. Click on ZScripts. It's the anglerfish. Let's see what that is. So the anglerfish is the fish I was talking about earlier. ZScripts. Load. No. Yeah. If there's a way to kind of bring that up, I'm not sure about. But yeah, anglerfish. It was the one I was talking about. Cool, Adam. Thanks for the kind words. How'd you do something like a koi butterfly? What's that? Koi butterfly. Oh, okay, koi fish. That would be basically just getting the overall shape and then adding these little pieces. These would kind of be like the feather method we just talked about, and the scale method with the feathers we just talked about. You could do that as well. A lot of different ways you could tackle this, but at the end of the day, it's just basically getting your overall forms first. And in the case of a koi fish, you know what, let's do this. Do I have one that's just like kind of the easiest way is just to see if you have an image that'll allow you like a good side view or a good top view, just so you can get your proportions right quickly. And boy, these things are bendy. They just do not want to. Okay, that one's good. Let's say save image as. Let's go to our desktop here, file. So something like texture, import, desktop, file, texture, grab it, add it to Spotlight. And this one we're going to have to rotate around, so he's a little bit kind of down the middle here. And then we'll go ahead and drop this down. And at the end of the day, what's most important is, again, Sphere 3D, edit, make Polymesh 3D. Let's go ahead and hit X to go across X symmetry. We can stretch this out a little bit and then bring our Spotlight back. And then we just need to go through here and be like, okay, this is our overall proportions. You can grab the move brush here. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit straighter here. And then Z. There we go. So we've got our overall shape here. There you go. There's your koi fish. Of course, that's just the start, but at least you have your volumes here. If you had a side view, that'd be even excellent, even more excellent. But now we can turn on like maybe Dynamesh. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do a unify and then Dynamesh. I like to have everything kind of. That's under your deformation menu, by the way. So now you just need to go through here, and I don't have my koi fish reference up anymore, but go through here and you can either start adding this detail, or if you know it's going to be a separate piece, you can just go through here and just drag in a couple spheres, and then go ahead and say split mask points, and then now we can go through here and just start sculpting out, you know, whatever details that your object has. And oh, we're still on you're still on basic material, and we'll go ahead and do a friendly koi fish. Give him a little smile here. Let's go ahead and turn down that lazy radius just a bit. So here, and then koi fish, they wouldn't have noses, right? Because they're fish, Mike. You know basic biology. Something like this. And then, you know, make sure that whatever forms and stuff, you can also go through here if you need to. Let's go ahead and go to Unmesh Mesh Center. We'll turn on LSim, and we'll go ahead and reposition these eyes just a little bit here. If we want to give him a little bit more forward vision, if you're going to do like a character or something and they need to maybe look ahead just a little bit. And then the fins, just like we were doing with the angler fish, You can go through here and you can hold down Control and you can just mask out what you need. And now that we have Dynamesh, it's just a simple matter of just kind of going through here and then Dynameshing that result. But me personally, what I would probably prefer to do is just go through here and we'll do like a cube split mask points, and we'll start with this separately first. This makes it a little bit easier to kind of go through and kind of control a little bit better. And now this one, we can actually, we can just continue doing, let's go ahead and reset this here. Let's go insert single edge loop, get rid of this one, and then we'll do a mirror and weld. There we go. And we'll turn on X symmetry back on. Yeah, same thing for the tail, same thing for the side fins, all that good stuff. Cool, and sorry if I, how would you use ZRepeat for a ZSpheres retopology setup? That, when I go through and I retopologize, really just more of a, I haven't really felt the need to go over to ZRepeat it, as far as, I mean, I guess you could, but all my ZSphere stuff is, instead of using ZRepeat it, I have it all right here. So while I'm retopologizing, everything I need is right here. So I can just very quickly go through here and do like topology, make it blah, 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 blah. And it gives me a little bit more control, and then I'll just add and append and move the ZSpheres down. I'm not sure that adding ZRepeat it functionality would speed me up that much. Okay. Oh, from mesh in the brush palette. Thank you. You know, that's the thing, is sometimes I'll learn something, I'll do a video about it, and boy, I will forget it if I don't use it very much. Perfect example of that. Ask you what's wrong with my portfolio. I've tried really hard to find a remote job and I wasn't able to. Yeah, I can give that a look. And honestly, let me see, I can't give you guys links to all this stuff. Yeah, this one probably isn't that much use for you guys. I might go through. Let me make a note to be like, hey, blog about character artist stuff and what I'm looking for. And again, it's just my opinion. And I'm not the only voice in the room. I'm one voice among many. So when it comes to like vetting talent, I can have my opinion known. I go through and I can kind of help sort. But at the end of the day, I really rely on my leads to pick the people who they think would be best. So again, I can just give you my opinion on that stuff. Let's see. Let me see if I can do that real quick. Sorry. Yeah, I would say, I mean, your sculpts are really good. As far as like, you know, certain affinity in particular, again, you know, it is well-rounded. You do have a vehicle. Oh, I guess I can show this here. You got vehicles, you got creature stuff. Most of it's sculptural. Details and stuff like that. A lot of it is, I mean, you got stuff that's posed, so it kind of depends on where you want to apply to and what kind of games they make. Like for us, we do some creature work, but a lot of it is more like hard surface sci-fi, so when I'm looking, I want to see like armor sets and weapons, as well as like skin, hair, cloth, hyper-realistic stuff like that. Marvelous designer work. And then creature stuff is not as important. It's certainly important, and there's nothing wrong with having it in there, but all that other stuff would be an easier sell for me. Oops. Whenever you're dragging stuff out, try to... Oh no, we got in a bad state. So, okay, I think we're good here. Let me go ahead and say... let's go ahead and start ZBrush here. Sorry, kind of got off topic there. I don't really even remember what the first topic was. I suppose it was... we're just kind of playing around here. Let's see where we ended up. Okay, that one's corrupted. Let's see. Oh yeah, Bertrand brings up a good point too. Like knowing the game process, like yeah, just having high res stuff is fine for a source point of view. But at the end of the day, even if we do end up outsourcing like a lot of our, say game res or baking maps or initial Unreal setup or anything like that, we would still want to make sure that you have some semblance of knowledge of like, hey, here's how you retopologize something, here's how you bake your maps, here's how you do material breakups or ID passes and all that good stuff. So just a general knowledge. Let's go back to this version here. Okay, this one's a nice safe version here. Speaking of retopology, one thing we can do, let's go ahead and start up material, is we can retopologize this face. Now the beak I am going to leave separate. So, and then now we have to decide here, do I want to, actually, let's do this. Let's do save as, and I'm going to save this under, I'm going to clear up my ZBrush real quick. So we're going to go to streaming, owl refine, let's call this owl refine 02. And then all of this stuff, you can manually just go through here and delete this. You can also go to preferences, initialize ZBrush. I guess we can do that. Let's clear it out and load tool here. There we go. Nice and clean. So let's say this is the detail we want. Of course, in here we could use our brush chisel creature. We could use like this one scale here. We can go through and we can kind of just start popping in some feather detail if we wanted to, or use your snake hook brush or whatever you want to get that kind of look, whatever look you're going for. And you can start with that. You can manually go through and mask and inflate and extrude and all that good stuff, but I'll just go ahead and leave that alone for now. We can just maybe indicate some detail. Let me go ahead and pull this out to a little bit more of a point, holding with Damien's standard. And then now we can kind of go through here and maybe use our standard brush here and kind of bump this out just a little bit. Same thing for this up here. This we can kind of start breaking up and overlapping. Now again, if you did want to overlap, you may have to use snake hook tool or ZRemesh first and then build these in. So let's try doing that. Let's see, what's the easiest way for me to go about this? I always want to avoid manually retopologizing just because I'm so tremendously lazy. But at the end of the day, if you want the most control over what you're doing, manually retopologizing is a great way to go about that. And also another thing too is one thing to consider is, let's go ahead and go to unmeshed mesh center here, is if we want to say move these things independently and it's like, my head's moving, but I want to do a bunch of blend shapes with this and I don't want to add those blend shapes to the body, that would be me retopologizing the head separately from the body, and then just because there's a natural seam in there, I don't think you're ever going to really, you can cover that up with the feathers and stuff. You have a natural break between your head and your body, so you don't have to have just one contiguous mesh in here. Now, if it was a salamander or something like that, that might be a little tougher to pull off. You'd have to come up with the normal seams. I mean, I'm talking game engine solutions, but like having the separate objects, but going through and making sure those vertex normals lined up and played nicely, and then your blend shapes didn't touch any seams unless you wanted to blend across them, which is totally possible, but kind of a pain to keep track of. So, cool. All right, so let's see. So we got this going here. Let me see how I want to retopologize this. I think what I want to do is I want to leave the beak separate. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off here, and then his neck, I'm going to have separate as well. This neck I'll have blended into his body. So in fact, what I can do is I can shoot that to the top, shoot this to the top, and then I can merge these down. I can blend those together. So these two objects are the same. So if we retopologize the body, and then honestly, probably the wings I would keep separate as well from and then of course the feet I would have separate. But for now, we can go ahead and just turn off the stuff we don't really care about. So I'm going to go through here, and I'm just going to Alt tap it, and then I'm going to touch the nameplate. That was this mask, sorry. To turn that off. So this is essentially what I'm retopologizing. Of course, the eyes here, I don't want to retopologize, and the eyebrows here we're going to have separate. So this is essentially my head topology that I want to retopologize. Now, if I'm using ZRemesher, I can use these rings to my advantage. So let's try to do that. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to say hit Control W for this one. Let's go ahead and turn off line here so you can see what I'm doing. So this one here, you can see we have, let's go into solo mode. I'm going to make, see how it has a little group around here. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and say auto groups, and then we'll do a mirror and weld. And so now this section here is its own. Oops, let's make this section here its own, and then this section here. So now we have nice polygroups in between these, and I want my ZRemesher to follow these polygroups as well as follow the polygroups between these areas too. And you know, while I'm at it, I can say follow the polygroups between these two meshes. So let's go ahead and even these out. So let's say this is the result I'm looking for. Also, another thing we can do is if we want it to follow along this line, let's go ahead and give it an indication. Well, before we do that, I want this to be my high res here. So we're going to leave these alone, and then we're going to do a merge visible, and I'm going to go, let's go to top here, and we'll say insert this merged one here. So this is what I'm going to be using for my topology, so I'm going to go into solo mode so I don't get confused. So I'm going to use this for my ZRemesher, and then we're going to project back to my original high res. Now, part of the problem is this thing right here, they got chunky. So I'm going to split hidden, and then I'm going to say dynamic, and then we're going to hit apply. There we go. And then I'm going to merge those back down. We'll go back into solo mode. So we still have our polygroups. We just have a little bit of a smoother mesh result. Now on this object here, what I also want to do is I want to dictate where those that topology line flows, and I want to put one right down the side here. Just because I think we'll get a better result if we do that. And you can also, you know what, another thing to break up is just the loops around the face. So let's do this. Let's go to one thing I like to look at, ZBrush for illustrators. ZBrushforillustrators.com. Scroll down till you get to Steve James. And then, boy, that's a low resolution. I'm going to go click through here. There we go. So I'm just going to follow these edge loops around the face, just so when we go through and we when we're retopologizing, we'll get a little bit of a little more predictable result. So through here, we're going to say, you know what, all of this is going to be like the brow. Like so. And actually, we can actually make all of this because we're going to build in these eyelids. We're going to Boolean this operation here, so I don't even have to worry about that. And you know what? We can probably pull this. This is a little bit weirder, or a little bit different, I should say, than just face topology. But we can go ahead and make this all one polygroup. And now instead of just hitting Control W, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do edge loop mask border just to kind of smooth that result out a little bit here. So we're going to go under geometry, edge loop mask border. Oh, we have to have everything showing. You know what? Let's do this. Control Shift A. I'm going to split this temporarily. Edge loop mask border. There we go. Whoops. So let's take this one here. Let's do auto groups. And then now these two down here where I didn't mean to. We'll take this one, and then this one here. We'll hit Control W. There we go. So now we've got kind of the loop around the eye. We don't really have a nose because that's under the beak, but we do kind of have one that kind of goes around the mouth, but I think this will be fine. I think these are just cheeks. So, and you want concentric rings around like the mouth and the nose area. You know what I might do? Let me do this. I'm going to say hold down Control, go in here to auto masking. We're going to say mask by polygroups up to 100. I'm actually going to mask up into this area and then back down. I'm going to hit Control W, and I'm going to add both of these to the same one. Now I did kind of ruin this. So one thing I can do is I can go over here to my masking. I can do mask border, invert that, and then do like a polish by features there. Kind of smooth those results out. You can also just kind of smooth through here, mask by polygroups down to 100. That didn't really work that well. I'll ignore that. So now again, hold down Control, mask by polygroups up to 100, and then now what we can do is we can say we can go around the mouth here, but honestly in this section, I think we'll be fine if we just kind of maybe, because I was hoping to do, this is going to be an awkward transition through here. But you know what? It might not be that bad. I don't know. Figure out how to do an owl face. I'm not an owl expert. As far as nice for topology, and we can always clean this up later too. It's not a huge deal if we need to go through and make adjustments in the final geometry. ZRemesher just being maybe a faster result, possibly, or you know what, it might not be. If we go through a bunch of trial and error and it turns out would have been faster just to manually topologize it, consider starting there. So now this one we can go ahead and do, oops. If you do edge of the mask board, it's going to leave a ring there. So we'll just go ahead and hit Control W. And then this back here, I don't really care what that does that much. If you do want to control, actually, let's go ahead and say Control Shift. We'll hold down Control Shift and Alt. And then we'll get rid of this. We'll hit Control W. There we go. You know, if this was the mouth, it would be a good idea just to put like a concentric edge ring around here. So we can hit edge of the mask border like so. So just any places where you can get concentric edge rings. And then if we did have the built-in eyelids, we would want to put an edge ring here and an edge ring here just to kind of control that. But since we have that built in, I think that'll be fine. So again, this is going to be problematic in here, but I think we might be able to soften that transition out just a little bit. So turn our lines back on. We got our fill on. We have X turned on. Let's go ahead and say ZRemesher. We'll keep the adaptive size down fairly low. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. Target polygon count, we'll put it down to like 1K. We'll hit ZRemesh. And then wait for it. It's having to think pretty hard there. And again, oh, stupid. Keep groups turned on. Smooth groups up to 1. Let's turn that down just a bit. And then we'll hit ZRemesher again. Obviously, we want to keep our groups, so we're getting polygroups out of it. And then we can adjust our head in a second. Now, I'm actually doing this a little bit prematurely. One thing I do want to do is go ahead and add the eyelids into this mesh before I ZRemesh. I'm just trying to see if this is going to be as problematic as I think it is. You know, it's not that terrible, but I could probably help this out a little bit if I went through here and I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and swing this down a little bit. Maybe that. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to merge this back down. So now this is, I want to build these edge loops in. Now this edge loop gets really tiny in there, which may again be problematic. You know, so I may want to like either fudge this out just for ZRemesh purposes, and then I can always push it back later. Oops, let's turn off mask by polygroups down to 0. I don't want to give ZRemesher too hard of a time because it's having to think about a lot when it's trying to keep these things, you know, contiguous edges and stuff like that. So I don't want to throw it for too hard of a loop if I can help it. And then even I can invert that and I can say, you know what, let's drop this down. Let's give this a little bit more breathing room, again, just for retopologizing purposes. And then I can always go back in later and stick those or shrink those back together. I'm trying to remember, there was one result, or there was one thing where we kind of did that when we were doing, oh, if you want like overlapping fat folds and stuff like that, what you would want to do is go ahead and ZRemesh it apart, and then after it's ZRemeshed, go through, and then you can kind of mush everything together and have them overlapping and folding up. So something like this. So now if we want to ZRemesh this all as one object, you can Dynamesh it, but it's going to give us a very gross transition between these objects. What I prefer to do is just go in here to your, let's turn off X symmetry because I think it's going to yell at me. Go into your gear icon here and then do a remesh by union. And there we go. Now one problem is when I was moving this stuff around, I did lose I got out of sync with my original high-res source pieces down here. Not a huge deal. One thing I can do is I can just duplicate this version off, and then we can just project to the one I moved around. And I can just delete my other subtools. I don't need them anymore. Okay, so there's the result. It went through in a Boolean them. So now, let's see. Okay, now this is going to be problematic. Let's do this. I forgot that this beard here was going to be its own subtool. Now it doesn't have to be. You can take this one and then add this one. Oops, this one and then this one. Then you can make it all one subtool, or one polygroup, I'm sorry. If you really don't care about that geometry or having a loop around there. And let's see what this does. So we'll hit W, oops. Not W. We'll go down here to ZRemesher, keep groups, target polygon 1, depth size down 0, and ZRemesh. And yeah, not a real good looking face right now. he's missing a lot of his cuteness. Now before you ZRemesh, if you did want to like do a lot of silhouette changey stuff, I would do that in Dynamesh first. Oh, we didn't have X symmetry turned on. And 1 might be a little bit low. Let's say 2K. Give us a little bit more to work with here. And you can do the exact same process for the body, or you can manually retopologize it, or you can do both. You can do ZRemesher first, and then you can throw it into a ZSphere. Excuse me, and then you can go and clean it up, which we may have to do with this one. But I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off. I'm going to move this one to the top just so I know where I'm at. Turn everything off but that and the original high res. And then if you wanted to go ahead and add subdivisions to get your detail back, not a whole lot of detail that we had, but just in case. What I would possibly consider doing is maybe, because I want to keep these eyelids nice and crispy, so I'm going to say crease polygroup. May not be the best idea in the world, but I think it'll work. So now we can hit Control D to subdivide, and then we can go to project all, and that'll project my details out. Control D to subdivide, project all, Control D to subdivide, project all, and then now we have a ZRemeshed version of the bird. Let's turn off our polyframe here with subdivision history. Now we got edge loops all the way around, and we're in good shape. Now, if you did want to modify this topology, which we may want to do, one thing you can do to modify it is you can use ZModeler. So we can go through here. Let's go ahead and we'll delete higher. So if there's any problematic areas in here that you really don't like, these I don't really care about because I don't really see inside of there, but maybe like these rings in between these areas here, you may want to go through and fix, or even this inside of this eyeball. If you want to go ahead and clear that out, you can say delete hidden, and then you can say let's go ahead and close convex hole. You can pull this in, and again we can just simplify that geometry here. And then even in here we could either do, well, first of all let's do mask. I guess we could do move, but I like to have a little bit more control, so over this we'll do mask point, and then invert that, and then we'll go ahead and push this back in. Now if we want to snap this later on, might be problematic, but we can remove that from our ZProject settings. Another thing we can do, we can go to insert edge loop, or I suppose you could also do an inset polygroup all if you want to add edge rings in here, which might be better for animation. You can also add edge rings around here. You can go insert single edge loop and you can add more edge rings since these are nice and concentric. Now these rings not so concentric, so that can be a problem. So to kind of fix those areas, let's go ahead and say let's bridge 2 points, and we'll take this one to this one, and then we'll go ahead and grab this one and we'll say collapse edge. Kind of collapse that in. So you can kind of use ZModeler to go through and rebuild some of this. Now another thing you can do, which may not be so great because you'll kind of lose your polygroups, but you can always go back in and rebuild your polygroups, is you can go through here and you can say, let's go ahead and clone this off. And we'll go and turn this off. And then here's my original high res. I'm going to go to append a ZSphere. Wait, I don't want to append. I want to insert. Let's go ahead and delete that. Let's make it a little bit easier. So we're going to grab this one. We're going to go to insert ZSphere. And then with the ZSphere showing and my original high-res head showing on the ZSphere, we're going to go ahead and hit X symmetry, go into transparency mode. We'll go ahead and scale this down, hit W, we could bury that right inside the head there. And then in our ZSphere options, and again, like we were talking about before with you know, using this menu, this is where I would actually go right now to go ahead and just like add stuff as needed, but you can also go down here to your topology, and instead of editing your topology, we can go into select topology, and we can grab that topology here. I like to do a matte cap pearl with a dark gray, and so now we can go through here, and if we want to clean anything up, we can go through here. We can hit Q. Let's go ahead and say edit topology, Control drag, Control Shift tap, and then go through here, and we can hold down Alt, and then we can just start rebuilding some of these problem areas that you may not like that much. And that would just be a matter of going through here and drawing. We can let's go tap off and go ahead and connect these ones up, and then we can hit W to move, and then let's go through here and we can doop, 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 and I'll go ahead and terminate that there. I'm not doing, I would say, better topology, just different crappy topology, but just kind of demonstrating that you can go through here and you can change the topology however you'd like. Again, with the caveat that it is going to remove your polygroups. If it ever auto-saves, that just throws you out of edit topology mode. Just go ahead and turn that back on. Once you have that, just like we were talking about before, adapt to skin, Dynamesh resolution down to 0, density of 1, make adapt to skin. And now you have your new topology sitting up there. You can go ahead and delete that ZSphere. And now we can go insert the skin ZSphere. So here's our new topology, minus our polygroups. Polygroups might be easy enough to get back. Just do a group by normals, mirror and weld, and then you can just maybe even manually go through here and be like, okay, this was all one polygroup here, so we can go ahead and start painting this. And if we want to make it a little bit easier, we can isolate that. Oops. And now on this one, we can go ahead and do like an auto groups. And then again, mirror and weld. And then isolate this one, Control W. And now this one down here is like, oh, I didn't want that one. Hold down Alt and then Shift, and then go ahead and clean that up. So now we've got our polygroups back. And we redid the geometry there. And I guess this needs to be polygroup, but I think you get the idea. So we'll go ahead and delete that. Here's our high res. Here's our new geometry. And now this would be much easier to kind of move around and animate and stuff. If we did need to, again, if you did need to like close the eyeballs, you're going to need more geometry in here. So you're going to want to like insert, probably insert multiple. And let's see, can we do same polygroup? There we go. Insert multiple, same polygroup. And I wish it didn't crease. Is there a way to not crease? Okay, well, like we did before, we can go ahead and insert more polygroups in here. We can isolate this one. We can say uncrease all, and then crease that open border. But yeah, so I guess we can go ahead and have both of those showing. And then one more time, we'll go ahead and say crease polygroup, subdivide, and project. Oh yeah, okay. So if you want, so we made this new geometry, but we don't want this geometry project. Just simply remove it, Control Shift, and isolate it, and then do a project all. Ooh. Okay, one thing we can do is it really wants to stick those. Okay, here's what we can do. Isolate this, mask it, and then do a project all. Oh wait, invert that, duh. Okay, that works a little bit better. So mask that, and then you're going to need to unmask, subdivide, isolate it again, project all, subdivide, wait, mask, invert that, sorry, project all. You guys know what I'm trying to do, right? So now we have this version. Let's go back to our startup material with white. So we have this version, which is animatable, and then we have this version, which is our original high res. We go ahead and delete that. And now we have our original pieces in here. If you want to keep, there's nothing wrong with keeping your original pieces here. So if we go through here and we say, you know what, let's make a folder for those. So I've got W selected. So we have all of our original head pieces here. So I want to make a folder for them. So let's say we go in here to move multiple, and we hash everything. So we're going to say Control Shift tap this one, and then the eyeballs are always going to be separate, but these we can put in there. You know, the glasses we'll leave out, the beak, this we'll go ahead and put in there. So all of these pieces that we retopologized and replaced, I'm going to go ahead and select them, and then down here underneath your subtool we have a new folder. And I think Control F is a hotkey for that. I forget. And then always yes. We'll call this head working. There we go. And then go ahead and just turn that folder off. So I have some more nightmare fuel for you. But if we go back up here and turn the head back on, there we go. Nice friendly head. And now if we want to do layers and posing and stuff like that, what we can do is we can go through here now and oops, looks like this piece here needs to be added. I'm going to hold down Shift and shoot that at the bottom. Let's drop that into head working. There we go. So now we have a lower subdivision history. So if we wanted to go through and animate this guy, on my YouTube channel, there's Maya animation blend shape layers. So we go in here to our Z plugin. Here, in fact, if we do a, how likely are you to recommend this Windows 10 PC to a friend or colleague? So go over here to YouTube and say ZBrush Maya blend shapes plugin or blend shape resources. There's a couple of videos in here you can watch. But it's pretty easy. So if we go up here to subdivision level 4, and then we go down here to our layers system, you don't have to use the Maya blend shapes plugin. You can just do it manually, but it's a nice thing to have. So we can go through here and we can say new layer, and that'll go through and automatically turn stuff off. So now what we can do is I like to go down here to our geometry, and then because we're using so much less less shapes here, it's a lot easier to go through and do, you know, nice posable, and kind of like maybe smirk this side up a little bit. Let's take this glasses off. Kind of go through here and like do one side smirky up, like so. Oops, I guess we should also unmask. Let's do that. That's one thing to watch out for. So you can obviously, it's a lot easier when you're doing your blend shapes too to have polygroups that you can mask out. So if you wanted to, like, say, just move these eyelids, it's simple enough just to grab these things, mask them, invert them, and now you can just like go through and just manipulate like the lower lid or even like the inside lid. It'd be easy enough. You can also go through here and you can say mask that one, and then you can go through and like mask these. And let's go ahead and mask this whole side here too. And then now we can go through here and we can like rotate up. Like so. And now this would have a pupil in it, so I wouldn't worry too much about like being able to see that. But now we can grab these ones, and now we just have access to those vertices. We can kind of smooth those ones out and then bring those back. But if that does bother you, you just use the move brush and kind of stuff that back in there. But adding more edge loops around that would be helpful. So we can go through here. We can like do an eyelid left, up, and you could go ahead and save that as a layer, but let's go ahead and just do, so we got this eyelid coming up, and then this is kind of coming up as well. If we want to isolate these ones, we can move these independently, or you can also go down here to your masking, and do mask border, and then that'll leave your border vertices untouched. And you can go through here and you can kind of move these things up and inflate it. And then let's see, you can also use X symmetry here, so you can go through here and we can like isolate like these two, and we can go through here and we can like do a brow down. Now these aren't going to follow. You can add a separate blend shape layer to get those to follow along like a set driven key for your blend shapes. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to illustrate. Now blend shapes are linear interpolation, which means basically point A goes linearly straight to point B. So if you needed to do any sort of like rotation in your blend shape, you want that to either be joint controlled, or you can start with a blend shape and then make it joint controlled to give you a little bit more of a rotational, be able to allow you to follow rotational axes. But another thing you can do is you just add multiple blend shapes. So if you had a big fat eyeball like this and you wanted to do a closed eyelid, you can close the eyelid, but then you'd have to go through and do eyelid quarter, 3/4, half, or you know what I mean. Break it down, and then you can swim through those blend shapes, and then I'll kind of force it to be like linear, 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 but go around a surface. Because if you just go from open eyelid to closed eyelid on this guy, it's going to go here and then go right through the eyeball to the closed position. And that's why usually you would use like joint rotation for like eyeball or eyelid type stuff. And this is also too where if you wanted to like sculpt in an extreme pose, you would know you'd have all the geometry available to you, because if you did want to do anything really violent with your blend shapes, like I want to do crazy brow, you'd want to make sure you have enough edge loops to support crazy brow, for instance. So here we can move the brows kind of independently from the eyelid just because of our polygroups here. So we've got one eye up, and over here we'll go ahead and turn X symmetry off. Oops. And we go ahead and, like, again, just move this one up and then maybe inflate this around here. And again, we're just sculpting on that layer. So when we're done doing that, we have to go up to our highest subdivision level here. And then now we have this available to us. We can kind of do our little blend shape like so, and you can just stack these on top of each other, blend shape, blend shape, blend shape. Blend shapes are also additive, so if you have blend shapes that move these vertices, and then you have another blend shape below it that also moves these vertices, you get double translation on those vertices. So that's when you come into like deconstructing shapes and stuff like that to make sure you don't have any overlaps, but that gets a little production-y. Cool. Let's see, do you use XMD Toolbox to manage brush assets, or is ZBrush 2019 capable of managing large libraries? At work I used to use a plugin. Again, I say used to because I don't really use ZBrush anymore, but I mean I do, but not in production at this particular minute. Let's go ahead and turn this stuff back on. I don't really use anything in particular. Again, I'm not really wrangling massive amounts of library assets though, so. If you want, you don't want to scale these things out necessarily unless you want to get that oval look. You can also just go through and mask, and then just move these out independently from that bridge there. So we'll go ahead and turn his eyebrows back on. Another thing, this is the kind of thing too where you could like, yeah, this is what we were talking about. We're like ZRemeshing this like kind of fat fold in there separately, but also when it comes to feet. Another thing we can do is we kind of just blocked out these feet. I think we did, we could just ZRemesh these things. This might be okay if you're looking for like just kind of lo-fi feet, you can do that. If you want to make sure these edge rings, you don't have any spirals, which the new ZRemesher, and actually the older ZRemesher wasn't bad either, usually did a pretty good job, but you can go through here and you can say, two ways you can do this. Hold down Control Shift, go to select lasso, and we can grab like these two, hit Control W and make its own polygroup, or even easier is ZModeler, Polygroup, Polyloop. Let's go through here and tap Alt. Like so, and then now here it starts getting a little problematic, I bet. Yeah, this is gonna lead to issues. So this one, we may have to like fix this one. We could bridge that one, collapse, but that gets a little bit squirrely. May just leave that one alone. Another thing we can do though, if you wanted to ZRemesh, remesh this one, I'll show you that in a second. So anyway, polygroup. Let's say you're having, you're going through, and you want to kind of basically show you what I'm doing here. I'm just tapping on these and then tapping Alt just to get alternating rings, and then you can go through here and you can do things like inset polygroup all. So you can go through region, you could inset these and then just go through and tap these, and then you can even isolate these ones if you want to do it all at once. Hit Control W, and then you can go through here and you can say like hue mesh polygroup all, and you can pull these up, or if you want to hold down Shift and pull along that surface normal, and then you can like crease PG and then hit dynamic. You can have that kind of look. However, another thing you can do, if you wanted to ZRemesh this and not get any loops, you want to control your loops even more. Let's go ahead and say here, so we did this, we realized, you know what, I want to really control my loops. So one thing you can do, let's go ahead and make a loop here, and isolate this here. So we've got a polygroup here, a polygroup here, a polygroup here, and then all of these ones I'm just going to collapse into their own polygroup here. And take this one here, Control W, and then these ones, Control W, and then these ones, So now we have, again, guides. Now we don't have any high res we need to snap to, so I'm not going to duplicate this off or anything, but we'll say, okay, say same, keep groups, smooth groups up at 1 is fine, adaptive size down to 0, and we'll just ZRemesh this result. And then now you know that in between those polygroups, there's not any spirals. So now it'll be a little bit easier for you to go through and just break these things up. So now in this case, you could isolate this. You can do Control-Shift-S to shrink, Control-W, S to shrink, Control W, and then now they're already broken up. Same thing for this one. Let's do that. W, Control S to shrink, Control W, Control S to shrink, Control W, S to shrink, Control W. So now you've got that. And then now we can go through here. Now here, you can go through here also, and you can do like bevel as the complete if you want to try that. And then you can Q-mesh these in if you didn't want to do like what we did previously. So I'm just going to go through here. And let's say beveling is what we're looking for this time. So we'll go through, and I'm just tapping. Once you set that initial bevel profile or width, you can go through here and just isolate those. Of course, now it's going to be a little bit difficult just to get those bevels, but that's okay. Not terribly difficult. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to do them all at the exact same value. It's a little bit easier to do it this way. Hit Control W, and now here, we can say just simply Q-mesh or extrude polygroup all. And now we get that result. Or if you wanted to have it taper a little bit, maybe you can go to Inset polygroup all, and we could inset these all at once, and then Q-mesh polygroup all, and just hold down Shift and kind of pull those in. Something like that. I think that's it. Cool. Yeah, no ZBrush work at the moment, but I'm getting back into it. Give me a little bit. So let's say we got this going, and we want to go ahead and just let's do a cartoony render. Well, first what we need to do is we need to put him a little something to stand on. So I'm going to go through here, and we're going to model a cylinder off of him. I'm going to grab his body here. Let's go ahead and say split mass points, and we'll go ahead and say auto groups, isolate this one. Delete hidden, go out of X symmetry here, W. Let's go ahead and scale this like so. Probably a little bit easier ways to go about that, but it is what it is. So we'll go ahead and just kind of stick that in between his feet here. And when it comes to branches, you can use ZSpheres for branches. You can also use like Sculptors Pro. There's a ZSphere branch creator, but at the end of the day, probably I'm just going to do, ZSpheres actually would have been cool. Let's do that. Okay, so now that I have this is fine. I can actually go through here and I can actually shrink this because I'm going to put a ZSphere right on there. So let's go ahead under this, and we're going to go to Insert ZSphere, and we're going to take the ZSphere and we're going to move it. And we're going to put this, W right there. We're going to scale it up just a bit. And then this other ZSphere is going to go into Transparency Ghost, hit Q, hold down Shift, and that'll make it the exact same size. And we'll go ahead and put that right through his feet there. And now this original cylinder here I don't need. So now here, at the beginning of our branch. So I'm going to go through here, and now let's say this branch is thicker this way, so we can go through here and we can make it thicker, and then Q, and go through here and we can kind of let's thicken that up just a bit more. Okay, and then on this end, we can say Q, and we can kind of thin out a little bit, and then doot doot, beep, bop, boop. And then off of this split here, let's go ahead and shrink that down a bit. There we go. And now these ones you can also rotate, and you can scale. You can go down the bone, or you can go just the joint here. I prefer the bone method here. And now this one looks like it may be a little problematic. There we go. Kind of space those out a little bit. All right. something like this. So just like we were doing before, we can go down here. You can just keep it a Dynamesh at this point if you want to, if you just want to like sculpt on this branch. I prefer adaptive skin, density down to 1, Dynamesh resolution down to 0, make adaptive skin, and we don't need the ZSphere anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and say insert skin ZSphere, go ahead and move this down, and then this ZSphere we can go ahead and delete it. So now you have a little branch you can sit on. We'll go ahead and hit dynamic subdivisions here. And then you can sculpt on it however you like. So now his arms are a little bit gross looking, but that's okay. And you know what? We can actually hide those for now. I think he'll work without arms, just for demonstration purposes. So we'll go ahead and turn on perspective mode. And then if you want to go up here to your draw menu, you can go through and change the focal length, make it a little bit more extreme if you do like 12. The armless, just because he looks a little bit weird. Let's go ahead and give him a little bit of volume on the sides of his body here since we took his... Actually, you know what? Let's do this. We can keep his arms, but temporarily, just for illustration purposes. So let's make sure that stays off. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to hit W, Control Tap this one, and we are going to fold these up. Actually, these are all put together, aren't they? Control Shift A. Yeah, that was our demo. Okay. Let's do this. Delete higher. W. We can just drag down the object here just to kind of mask. And then we can say, use our camera angle, kind of fold this up. And move this back. And then one more time, we'll just drag down here and then set position this one, use our camera angle, and we can kind of fold this here and go through and smooth, go through and inflate. We'll do another mirror and weld, and we'll go ahead and turn on our X symmetry here. Got a little chicken arm. He doesn't have feathers, which is, this is how I would want to make the geometry and then put the feathers on later. Right now it looks like he's kind of a turkey ready to be put in the oven, for which I apologize, but good enough for now. So let's go ahead and hit D for dynamic on that one. And it looks like he has Q grid turned on, but I guess not. That's just the geometry. Okay, fair enough. So if we wanted to go ahead and say render this thing, let's do SPix down. You know what? I always say SPix down to 0. Let's do SPix down to 1. We want a little aliasing and a little bit of speed. And then we can go in here to our render properties. If you want to know more about this, our ZBrush 2019 What's New playlist will walk you through all the new filters and rendering. Where's that at? ZBrush 2019 What's New. Check this out. There you go. And then, let's see. You know what? I like to be lazy. You know me. So I'm going to hit the comma key here. And let's go ahead and see if we can shrink that up a bit so we can see a little bit better. And then we're going to go over here to our render sets. And we can just try out some of these to kind of start with. See if we can't get a cool result or a cool render. And we don't have any color. So that's, coloring it's easy. You know, just going through and poly painting this thing. Ooh, abstract, that's kind of neat. But if you wanted to do like a pen and ink, these are a pretty good place to start. And then you can go through here and add all sorts of effects. So let's see. I kind of want to stick with a black and white pen and ink one. Although, you know, it is kind of cool if you had this stuff poly painted, and again, it's not difficult. So, it also depends on what startup material you use on some of these if they don't have it capped. So what we could do is we can just simply go through here. Is there a good color scheme? Let's say, you know what, let's go to Skin Shader 4. And we're going to go to Color. And you can see I have Fill Object set to Alt-Control F. So we can go ahead and fill this. Oops, let's unmask that. There we go. And then this we can fill with white. And then this we can fill with a very dark brown. And then the body we can fill with, we'll hit C to get that same color. And then the arms we'll do a slightly darker color. Let's mute that just a bit. And then the beak we'll do a little bit orangey. And the glasses we'll just do gray. And then the feet we'll also do orangey, so we'll just hit that one here. And then the body, did I not get that? And then the chin here, we'll just do a slightly lighter. Oh, you know what? This one, chin we're going to have to do separately. I forgot. So we'll go into our standard brush here. We'll turn on RGB. We'll turn on X symmetry. And we'll go through. We'll just paint this up. And of course, if you want to do, you can just go through here. You can also paint the body up if you needed to. And then another thing we can do is we can go back to the head here. We can isolate this. Let's do pure black. And right inside this mouth, let's go ahead and darken that up. And of course, always feel free. You can go in here and you can paint like, you know, slight gradients. You can add a little bit of a color boost, drop your RGB intensity down. You can go through and just like paint, I don't know, whatever you want. But let's say that's good enough for now. Although, you know what, this is going to bug me. So I'm going to take these eyeballs here and we're going to go ahead and put pupils in here. Let's go ahead and duplicate that off. Go Shift D, and you know what? For these pupils, normally you could just put a pupil back here and then do a goopy layer like we did with my earthworm Jim. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this. I'm going to isolate this one here. This is on my duplicate, correct? Yeah. So isolate this one here. We're going to delete hidden. I'm going to go ahead and flip those vertices here. Let's go and turn on double. And just because I already have the boundary selected, I'm going to say I'm going to close convex hole. And we're just going to pull this out, and we'll just get a little thing like that. We'll isolate this, hit Control W, and we'll dynamically subdivide that. So now we'll have C, fill, there we go, like so. So a little bit of poly painted thing, and then we'll go ahead and say this branch down here will be like that. And you're going to see, oh, it's black and white. Well, you should be able to go down here into the filters and see where that's happening. So this first one here, we have an overpaint color. So if you turn that off, actually I like that result better. The saturation is actually, there's a filter saturation on here. It's at -100. You can actually overcrank that. If your colors are too muted, you can take that saturation and kind of crank it up a little bit. So we'll go ahead and keep this. Outline edge is that one here. It looks a little bit heavy-handed in this case. So what I'm going to do is go into modifiers here. Let's see if we can't change that fall off just to kind of back that off towards the edges a little bit more. You know what, we'll do the interior cavity too. And then this one here. And actually, you know what, this outline edge, this back color and front color here, the back color is black. Let's change that to like maybe a darker brown so we can keep our stuff saturated a little bit here. And then the front color here, I'm not sure what that's exactly coloring here, but we'll go ahead and keep that a brownish too. Okay, so this is blend mode paint. It's getting rid of the background. That's fine. And then outline cavity is the outline here. So again, let's go into modifiers. It looks like there's like a severe amount of noise in there. Let's do an exterior cavity instead of interior. Let's do interior and exterior. Cavity radius, you can crank this up if you want to make it real graphic style. You can also change the fall off, so you can grab more or less of those interior faces, and then the sensitivity, you can crank that up. So we'll just do kind of like a line drawing kind of look. I think that'll work fine. And then this one too, I don't know that this front color is doing much, but this back color for sure. We'll drop this down to like that darker brown here. And then of course on top of these, what's this one, Orton? This is a contrast. It gives a nice cartoony look. And then a displace. It's kind of warbling those edges a little bit. That's fine. But on top of these things, also feel free to add in even more. So here's an overpaint color. We can change this to, if we wanted to do like maybe a flat shading And actually, let's see if we change our render settings. So under render, under shadow, I'm sorry, render properties, flat shadow is turned on. So if you turn flat shadow off and you BPR render, that'll give you a little bit of a smoother result. But flat shadow on and vibrant down to 0 is generally if you want that graphic-y type look. That's a better bet. And also underneath your shadows, your shadow strength is usually dropped down quite a bit. If you have it cranked up, you know, you get a very dark shadow. So if you want to see a little bit more in there, you can change that shadow opacity. Oh yeah, so we were back down here and we did a flat shading on this one, which number of shades, 3, 4. Kind of play with these a little bit here. He's very light, so it's not doing too much. If you want to get into, let's see, modifiers, let's see, number of shaders, 2. You know, that blend mode might be doing something weird. No, it's on replace. Another thing you can try doing is you can take this flat shading here. We can say, you know what? Let's cut this, and we will paste that right in there. So we're going to, that one we weren't using, so we do flat shading at the beginning, and then blend mode we'll put back on replace. And then, yeah, the saturation is doing some zany stuff with it. It's giving it that blues. That's okay. So flat shading here, number of shades, say 2 or 3. I don't know, play around with these things and see if they get a result you like. If you do like this, you can always save out your render sets as well. So you can just go through here and you have, okay, here's my new render set I like. So then you go up here to the top of your render menu here, and you can say render, save, and then you're going to want to save it into your ZBrush 2019.1 Z render presets, and this is your ZRP, so we'll call this owl render preset. So now when I go into my render presets, my render sets here, let's go ahead and make these a little bit bigger if we can. Is it going to let me? There we go. Let's see, element OP owl. So we have our little owl render preset in there, so no matter what we bring in, we'll have a cool little render for you. Cool. Yeah, I'm hoping to get back into maybe not so much production work, but at least training, so I can get back into making videos and doing cool stuff. That'd be a good happy medium for me. Oh, sorry about my webcam. I had to turn it off when I was streaming both. I was trying to do 2 OBSs, and of course my microphone didn't work with 2 OBSs, so I'll have to figure that out. I was hoping to stream to my YouTube channel at the same time, but that didn't look like it was going to work. But yeah, no UVs for this one. I would probably just run it through Houdini for a quick game res and then throw it into Painter. But anyway, it's 8 o'clock. I'll let you guys go. Oh, if you want this, you know what? I can. I'll drop that into the Discord. If you guys want the owl render, I'll drop it in the Discord if you want it. It's just the Z render project. So cool. All right. Thanks everybody. And my birthday's on Thursday. I could stream on Thursday. We'll see what I have going on. I have something weird going on. We have lore course training for our Happy Staffy. So I might not be able to stream in the morning. I'm going to try to stream in the afternoon if I can. If not, you know, I'll try to stream more throughout the month. It might just be more of a oops, here I am type deal. But we'll do a little bit more. It will work as a turntable. So all you would have to do is hit BPR. And then there's Turntable Master, but if you wanted to just quickly do like a movie, boy, it's been a while since I've done this. Let's go to title image. We'll do fade out, and then we'll do overlay image, opacity down to 0. Under timeline, you can do modifier. The spin frames is fine. Timeline. Oh, aspects. Let's drop that. If you wanted to do a faster render, you could do, boy, how do I not remember a recursive size on 0? And we want to do the document half. Timeline overway. This is what happens. This is turntable. Here it is. So now if you do a turntable, it'll go ahead and just capture this as a little graphic turntable image. Now, if you do have like texture overlays and stuff like that, it is going to kind of swim through those. There's no like projection. I don't know. It's not. It probably won't give you the effect you're looking for, but you can certainly give it a shot and just do a quick. But you just have to hit BPR first and then hit render turntable or whatever. You can actually animate your cameras too if you want to. And this will allow you to do this, and then we'll see how it exports here. Wait for it. Don't forget to tell new people about the Dawnfather. I'm not sure I remember what that is. Let's see, wait for it. Okay, so that movie's done. So then underneath our movie here, we can go over here to, let's see, time-lapse. Oh, we can play the movie or we can export it. So we'll go ahead and export this movie. Let's drop that right onto our desktop here as an MPEG. That's fine. Boop. And then let me move this here. So we've got our little MPEG movie here. Now I did medium, so it's doing like half, but there's our little render movie. Pretty neat, pretty cool, not too shabby. Anyway, can we record a model with blend shapes without turntable as a video? Yeah, all you would need to do is you would set those keys with your blend shapes. In fact, I kind of do both in my I'll show you a video real quick. Let me see. Recording, ZBrush, training, exported, all, week, unit 5. Nope. Unit 6. Facial part maybe not. Maybe it's beginning unit 7. Layer basics. Oh, time lapse. So we do a, on this one here, I do basically a ZRemesh, and then I do a bunch of, not a bunch, but some layers here. And then so you can animate the camera, you can animate just your blend shapes, you just set them on in your timeline, and then you can go through, oh, I guess I didn't record it. But yeah, you can, you're able to. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll edit these videos down. Also, I'm going to find, I have some old Pickle Rick videos that I recorded like 2 years ago that I need to go ahead and put up on my YouTube channel. So I'll do that. Anyways, thanks everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop and see you guys.